Welcome back, everyone. We're now able to continue taking evidence from Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, are you there? And can you hear me and see me?
I can hear you and see you, so yes, I can.
Good. Thank you very much. And you're ready to carry on?
I am indeed, yes.
Good. Thank you very much. Well then, Mr. Millett, when you're ready.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Clark, I was going to show you, and I would like to show you the transcript of day 71, please, at page 73. And at line 2 on that page, you can see the question and answers. The questioner is me, and the answer is coming from Mr. Roper. This is his evidence. Question at line 2. When you say he joked that Celotex could use a 6mm cement particle board, I'm just trying to understand why you thought what he was saying was a joke. Was it because actually you all knew that the use of 6mm cement particle board that Kingspan had used was a joke? Answer, unrealistic, yes. Question, unrealistic? Well, I don't want to coin a phrase, perhaps, but a cheat question. Answer, manipulation of the test details, yeah. I expressed those views to Phil. Question, you weren't in any doubt, were you, about Phil Clark's attitude to the reliability of the Kingspan test using cement particle board? Answer, no. Now, do you agree, looking at that evidence of Mr. Roper to the inquiry, that you did suggest, following the Kingspan example, as a joke for the reasons that Mr. Roper says he understood it?
No.
Was the suggestion of incorporating 6mm cement particle board, or any cement particle board, or particle board, a joke?
Not in the... No, I would say no.
And you say you don't remember this. Are you saying you definitely didn't say this? Or are you saying you don't recall it, one way or the other?
It's very unlikely that I would have ever joked about another client's work in that way. It's not what I do. It's not what I do. So I would wholeheartedly say I didn't say that.
Right.
And I think this is just an individual potentially feathering their nests to support an argument they had. That's my take on it.
Feathering their nests to support an argument, what do you mean?
Saying that so-and-so said this, so therefore he must have known, or whatever. It's like, it's not what I do. I don't joke like that about other people's clients' confidential information.
I understand that. I understand that you're trying your best to assist us with your recollection, but I don't think it's necessary for you to comment on the evidence.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
That is Mr. Roper's evidence, and I think I take it from what you're saying is that you don't agree with his recollection.
No.
And that you deny, do you, that you said what he says you said?
Yes.
Now, can I then turn to the report for the February 2014 test? And I'd like to start at page 35 of your statement, at paragraph 145. Paragraph 145 on page 35. And you say there, in answer to a question at Q7A, is it correct that no report was produced? If not, please identify the relevant report or reports. If it is correct, please explain why no report was produced. And you say, as far as I recall, no formal report was issued following this test. It was not unusual for the test sponsor to be asked if they wanted a formal report or not, and it is my understanding that in this case no formal report was requested. Now, you say it's not unusual, or wasn't unusual, for test sponsors to be asked if they wanted a report. Did you actually ask Celotex?
I think I possibly did, but I can't remember in which way, or whether it was done by somebody else. I can't remember asking them directly.
If we go to page 47 of your statement, please, let's look together at paragraph 196. The question you're answering there, question 8M, is, did you or any other representative of the BRE write to Celotex in respect of this test and or provide to Celotex any test data. And at paragraph 196, you say, I cannot recall whether this test data and or any related information was provided to Celotex following this test. Having reviewed the test files and the documents disclosed by BRE to the inquiry, I do not believe I have seen any evidence that any such information was given to Celotex. Now, let's just look at some of the contemporaneous documents together. Can we go to CEL 50842, please?
Can I just point something out before you move? In the previous paragraph, I think in the paragraph below, there was something where I do say that some data was sent. In, was it paragraph 147, I think?
Well, let's have a look at that.
I understand that the data, test data and photographs, oh no, sorry, that's my...
You want me to look at paragraph 147, do you?
146, sorry. I thought... Oh yes, it said about a secured PDF being sent.
Yes. Are you able, where you're sitting, to manipulate the screen? Because I was on page 100 and I was on paragraph 196, and I was wondering how you could.
No, I'm not touching anything.
Have you got a photographic memory of your statement?
No, I just saw something there. I just saw it as you were talking.
What did you see?
It said, I believe that Mr. Howard considered this request. So although no formal report was requested, I believe the test sponsor Celotex did request a copy of the data recorded during the test. I believe that Mr. Howard considered the request and that ultimately a data was released in the form of a secure PDF document.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm asking you, you see, about paragraph 196.
Yes.
So how could you remember to go back to 146?
I just noticed that that is there and it's in context with what you are just about to ask me, I think. So sorry, I put you off your train.
I wasn't sure how you were about to ask me that. I'm looking at paragraph 196 and was about to show you a document. And then you said, look at paragraph 146. Do you remember whether it was paragraph 146 or any other number that you wanted to go to?
It was 146, sorry, this one.
Mr. Millett, the answer may be, Mr. Millett, that we were looking at 145, and it's possible that Mr. Clark did what I did, which was to read ahead into paragraph 146 while you were speaking, and therefore it was fresh in his mind. At least I had no difficulty remembering that.
That's exactly what I did, sir. That's correct, yes.
Well, I was seeking to just explore with the witness what he did do, but...
Yes, carry on. I'll put you off your train.
Sure. CEL 50842. This is an email sent by Mr. Roper to Dr. Patel and Mr. Cooper of IFC on the 17th of February 2014, in which he says, please find attached preliminary data of our test on Friday. And we could see the attachment to that. It's at CEL 50843. And that's the document he attaches. You can just see that, please. This is the thermocouple data for the February test, isn't it?
It is a version of it, but that is an unprocessed, raw set of data, unapproved and not issued by the BRE.
Not issued by the BRE?
No, it was something we would have he could have printed to take away with him for his own reference, but it's because of the system. All of the graphs would be broken down into their component parts, and they would be titled and headed, and the project number and all of that would be put on there. So this isn't data that has been produced officially through BRE channels.
Well, let's just take it in stages. My question was, is this the thermocouple data from the February test? Well, let me ask you, what is it?
It is the whole data set from what I would say is an 8414 test, but because it's not labelled as to who the test sponsor is, I could not say if it was from that test or not.
Right. Well, this is the document that Mr. Roper attached to his email to Dr. Patel and Mr. Cooper of IFC on the 17th of February in the email I've just shown you.
Okay.
Did you send this document to Mr. Roper?
No, he would have probably been given that on the day.
By whom?
By me. That looks like that's my writing.
Well, that was another question I had. That's your
Yes.
right. I see. And what point would you have given him this document on the day?
It was customary to, once everything had settled down, we would process the data just to give them a very vague understanding of how things had panned out in terms of what was going on. But it would be caveated that it isn't official and it was subject to change. And for an example is, if you look at the orange and blue and purple, without actually sitting and looking at the data, how do I know where those channels are? It's very, without having the spreadsheet in front of me, there's nothing to say that test has passed or failed.
You say it would be caveated that it isn't official. Can you just show me where it says that?
No, that would be verbally.
So talk us through what happened then. Was there a conversation you had with Mr. Roper during which you gave him this document?
Yes, it started a long time ago. So even at the period where Dr. Sarah Colwell was in charge of the testing and would be client facing more than I was, that we would print the data in its raw form on the day, and we would show that to the client, and it would be, we would say to them, look, this is what we've got. You need to understand that this is raw data, it's subject to change, we need to check that every level is in the right place, and we would, from that, we would do something like the order of 6 or 7 thermocouple data plots for each level. And then the fact that they've sent it on is not what they're supposed to do.
When you told, or when you gave this document to Mr. Roper, what did you say?
As I said, this is the data from today's test. This is an indication only. This is for your records only, and it's not official. So they shouldn't have been sending it out. And to use that as an argument to an external consultancy, which I think it was IFC from Karina Patel, is not what the data is there for.
Did you keep a record of the fact that you'd given this document to Mr. Roper?
No.
So a review of the test files would not reveal the fact that you had done. Is that right?
No. There'd be a plot very similar to that, but there was literally a piece of paper printed off from the raw data.
When you did your witness statement, can you tell us why you didn't refer to this document and explain the circumstances in which Mr. Roper had come by it?
Because I wasn't aware he had taken it away with him. They normally don't take, the client doesn't normally take it away with them. It wasn't, I don't think it was given him to take away. Maybe he picked it up at the end of the meeting. I wasn't aware and didn't remember it was given to him.
Were you not shown this document when you were preparing your witness statement?
No, I haven't seen that before.
Is it right then that when you gave Mr. Roper this document on the day and caveated it in the way you say you did, that was as you I think explained, a normal part of BRE practice.
Yes, it was. Yes, yes.
Would you ever follow up with a client such as Celotex just to record the fact that you'd given them this raw data?
We didn't generally give them the paperwork. I'm surprised he took it away with him. Maybe he took it because he needed to report back to his management, I think. So maybe we'd said to him, right, here's a copy you can take with the usual caveats. And he would have been able to use that to prove to his hierarchy of what had happened. That's the only purpose he would have had that for. It was never and should never have been given to IFC in that regard.
But you never provided him with any clear terms of confidentiality or any rules about what he could and couldn't do with the document, did you?
It's in the terms that they sign up to, I think, in the BRE terms and conditions, I think, but such a long time ago, I couldn't remember if it says that. But ultimately, it's their data. But the problem he has there is, as I say, if somebody showed me that, you've showed it to me now, the only reason I would believe you that that is the Celotex test is because you've told me that's what the data is coming from. There's nothing on that data to show me when it was taken, who it was taken for, what the test was, what the anything at all in there. It could be any random data from any 8414 test. So if IFC have relied on that as a data set, then I think it's a bit foolish, to be honest.
Well, did you tell Mr. Roper when you handed him this document that he had to keep it strictly within Celotex and not consult anybody outside Celotex on what it meant?
Yes, I would have done, yes.
Would have done, but did you?
I can't recall exactly giving him that information, but that was generally the gist of what we would say.
Now, let's get back to the document, please. CEL 50843. This is the document we were looking at, and at the top of the page you can see some manuscript. I think you said that was yours. Is that right?
Appears to be my writing, yes.
Right. What does it signify?
So, as you're looking at it, so number 1 to 5 is so it's a plan view of the test facility, and the numbering refers to the numbering of the thermocouple channels. So if you see where it says level 1 EXT1, so number 1 is on the wing, the main wall furthest to the left, and number 8 is on the wing wall. So it's the channel numbering.
Right. Now, if we go back to Mr. Roper's email of the 17th of February 2014 at CEL 50842, please, I just want to continue with what he says there. In the second paragraph, do you see he says, I've spoken to Phil this morning, but he sees no reason why a classification report cannot be issued, as it is in his opinion that extending the test to the full duration of 30 minutes rather than stopping at 25 mins would have made little difference. And as shown attached, we meet the performance criteria of BR135 in not exceeding 600 degrees within the first 15 mins. Depending on how Phil's peers at the BRE receive this, it may be useful if we could set aside a date in the diary in which you could dial in to discuss your view from the test. Do you recall speaking to Mr. Roper on the morning of the 17th of February 2014?
The answer to your question is I do not recall, no. And that is definitely something I would never say. Because you cannot extend the duration of a test that you have stopped at 25 minutes. That's a physical, or not a physical impossibility, that it doesn't work like that. This is something he's made up himself.
Are you saying that Mr. Roper invented the content of the conversation that he's recorded in this paragraph I've just read to you?
Yes,
Really?
yes. You can't carry on a test that has been stopped. It's been stopped. It doesn't work like that.
Let's just break it down. He says, I've spoken to Phil this morning, and he sees no reason why a classification report cannot be issued. I'm just pausing there. Did you tell him that? No. So, and you're definite about that, are you?
Definite, yes, without a doubt.
You're saying he has concocted that statement and attributed it to you?
Yes.
Right. And then he goes on.
The test was stopped. You don't carry on. Once the test is stopped, it's stopped.
Well, let's go on to see what he says. As it is in his opinion that extending the test to the full duration of 30 minutes, rather than stopping at 25 minutes, would have made little difference. Just pausing there. Did you tell him that?
No, because we never had this conversation. So by definition, I couldn't have told him that, no.
You're saying he's concocted that, is that right?
Yes.
Next part of the sentence, and as shown attached, we meet the performance criteria of BR 135 in not exceeding 600 degrees within the first 15 minutes. Again, did you say that?
No.
And again, do you say that Mr. Roper has concocted that?
Yes, because BR 135 isn't just temperature. It's got other criteria that you have to meet.
Yes, but one of the criteria in BR 135 is that it shouldn't exceed 600 degrees within the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, but it doesn't say we have met one of the criteria of BR 135.
Well, of course, as you know, Mr. Roper was not an expert as you were, and he is passing on to those who are the gist of what he says you told him.
Yes. No,
so are you prepared to give him the benefit at least of that doubt?
Sorry, could you repeat your last question? Give him the benefit of, sorry, what?
He's not an expert. He's passing on the gist of what you as an expert told him to those he has retained as experts. Are you not prepared to give him the benefit of the doubt that at least that's how he understood it?
I would if the conversation had taken place, but the conversation never took place. It was not my remit to discuss whether or not something had passed or met the criteria of BR 135. And my clear definition would be, no, the test stopped at 30 minutes. You didn't even meet the first, at 25 minutes, sorry, you didn't even meet the first criteria which you require to undertake the test. And BS 8414 Part 2, I think at that point, stated that you had to, in order to undertake a classification of BR 135, you had to test the system for an hour if it was still burning. So you couldn't even extend it to 30 minutes. So he's wholly made that up.
Right. When was the first time you saw this email?
Just now.
Of course, this email was put to Mr. Roper in his evidence in early November, and therefore was put into the public domain and attributes to you a conversation. You've had 3 months in which to tell the inquiry that you not only don't recall this, but regard what he is saying in this email as a pack of lies. Can you explain why this is the first time we're hearing that from you?
Because nobody has brought it to my attention until now.
Were you not following Mr. Roper's evidence?
Not all the time, no. I've got a day job to do. I saw some of it, but I didn't want to see every single part of it, no.
This email was not, I think, referred to in your statement, was it?
No, because until today I've not seen it, no.
That's why.
Yes.
I see.
And had I seen it, I would have spelled exactly what I've said to you just now. It's not correct.
Let's see how we go. BRE 405808. This is an email you sent to Stephen Howard on the 19th of February 2014. So just 2 days after the email of the 17th of February, we've seen from Mr. Roper. And you see there, you say there, and this is internal, you've attached the data, and you say, Steve, attached is the data for the Celotex test for you to look at. I've also included a still of the system at the time the crib was extinguished with the complete panel superimposed to show where the flames are in comparison to the panels and panel joints. See that?
Yes, I see that.
Now, the attachments, I'm not sure we need to go to them, but if people want to, they're at BRE 405809, that's the full test data, and BRE 405810 is the photograph. I don't think it's necessary to go to that, but do you remember attaching the full test data and a photograph?
I do, yes. And that would have been fully processed data, not the raw form.
What was the point of your sending this data to Mr. Howard?
I think he had asked me how it had performed in a conversation, and I said I'd forward him on the test data and my basis for terminating.
Given the early termination, why was there any need for him to see the data?
Because ultimately, although the termination's there, on occasions he would want to understand what had gone on. And ultimately, because the decision to issue a BR135 or not fell with him, he would need to see the data as well. And because he obviously wasn't there, he would need some explanation as to why he would then subsequently say we can't issue a BR135 for this.
That rather tells us that, at least at this time, you were contemplating having or starting to have a conversation internally at BRE about whether or not the February 2014 Celotex test could be the subject of a BR135 classification.
Every test has that conversation. It's not unique to Kingspan, to Celotex at all. It's part of the process of what the test is there for.
Yes. So just because the test had to be terminated didn't mean it was full stop, did it?
Not in terms of, because it's not my decision to make whether the 135 is issued or not. That was Mr. Howard's decision. So he has to have that information to enable him to make that.
Right. And that hadn't yet been made on the 17th of February when you had the conversation, or when Mr. Roper says you had the conversation with him.
No, that decision hadn't been made by that point at all.
So it's possible that you could have had a conversation with Mr. Roper about the fact that no decision had yet been made about whether to classify or to produce a BR135 criteria report.
A conversation could have been had. I don't recall having a conversation. And had he asked me, I would well, it's not my place to say, but I would caution the fact that it would ever get a classification for the fact it didn't even meet two of the minimum criteria, which was 30 minutes.
Was the purpose of your email to set up a discussion with Mr. Howard to consider whether any reliance could be placed on the test?
I think he must have asked something along the lines of how did it perform, because he'd been speaking to John Roper in the early stages, and obviously he had an interest, and that was the easiest way to show how the system had performed, by giving him the data and what I classed as the decision to terminate the test.
I'm sorry, I'm going to press you on my question again, please. Was the purpose of your email to set up a discussion with Mr. Howard to consider whether any reliance could be placed on the test data?
When you say reliance, how do you mean by reliance?
Anything could be done with it?
No. not to be done with it. It was just to show that the test had failed, and that's is the only basis he has, other than being there and watching the video back.
You say at the end of the email, I'm happy to come I'm happy to come to you. Start the word to discuss. Do you remember whether there was a discussion with Mr. Howard about this test data?
I can't recall, no.
Just to be clear, when you sent him the data for the teletext test for him to look at, just tell us in simple terms what precisely the purpose of him looking at it was.
Because he could see how the system had performed in terms of whether it passed or failed.
There was a question mark about whether in fact it had passed or failed that could only be answered by him looking at the data.
No, because the test has failed by the fact it hasn't actually been undertaken for the full duration.
Yes. So when your last answer, when you said in answer to my question, how the system had performed in terms of whether it passed or failed, was that the question that Mr. Howard had to answer based on the data?
Ultimately, yes, because that decision comes from him. My decision is to terminate the test. My decision isn't to determine whether or not the system had failed.
Yes. And if it was the decision of Mr. Howard to decide whether or not the test had passed or failed, at the time that Mr. Roper sent his email on the 17th, that decision had not yet been made, had it?
No, it hadn't, no.
And it was a question that needed to be answered, wasn't it?
Yes, it was, yes, without a doubt.
Therefore, isn't it entirely possible that you would have communicated at least that fact to him, namely the fact that it had been terminated did not preclude the possibility that it had passed?
No, it can't pass.
If it can't pass, why is Mr. Howard deciding whether it had passed or failed?
So ultimately, the decision to terminate the test came from me. The way it worked at BRE was that Mr. Howard would communicate to the client directly that the system had passed or failed. And in this instance, he would have and should have phoned up Mr. Roper and said, the test had been terminated at 25 minutes, so therefore it didn't meet the first criteria, that you continued the test for the full duration, so it's failed on that. I've looked at the data, and if any of the channels were outside the required thresholds, then he would have said, and also these thermocouples have breached the requirement, and therefore it wouldn't have passed on that basis. But he wouldn't be able to make that decision having not seen the data. To ask him just to make a phone call off the bat without any information would be unfair on him.
You don't, in this email, say to Stephen Howard, well, here's the data, but I terminated the test at 25 minutes, so it's going to be a fail. Why didn't you give him that assistance or direction?
Because that's not my decision to make.
We don't see you actually referring to the fact that you terminated the test at 25 minutes at all in this email. Why is that?
I may have already had the conversation with him. He may have come down earlier. Just because we did talk to each other, just because it may have been a continuation of a conversation that was had earlier in the day. He may have come down to the hall and said, can you pass for me on the data so I can have a look? And it wasn't an email correspondence in that regard saying, oh, this is passed, I'll send you the data in that regard. We may have discussed it face to face earlier in the day.
If you discussed it earlier in the day and told them you terminated the test, why didn't your email just say, please write to the client to tell them that it's a fail because the test was terminated early?
Because that's not my decision to make.
No, but it's his decision to make based on what you're providing with him. And
yes, but it's in the position I am, he's a senior member of staff. It's not my job to tell him what he should and shouldn't say.
Very well. It's right, isn't it, that in the end, of course, no classification report was issued for the February test, was it?
That's correct, yes.
And can you remember how and when you confirmed to Mr. Roper that the test had failed?
No.
Is there an email or any kind of communication between you and him about it?
Not from me, no. I think if any, like I said earlier, I think any decision would have come from Stephen Howard.
Let's turn to the May 2014 test then, and I'd like to examine with you discussions before the test. In your statement at paragraph 200 at the bottom of page 48, we could just go to that, please. You say, and I should just read you the question before I show you what you say in response. It's question 8P, and that is as follows. As far as you are aware, what discussions and or correspondence between the BRE and the Celotex followed the test on 14th February 2014? What was the nature of any such communication? Please identify all relevant individuals by name and give full details of the nature and content of any meetings, calls or correspondence. Please describe your own part in any such discussions. And then you say, following the test on 14th February 2014, I believe I had discussions with Mr. Roper about undertaking a further test with a changed outer decorative layer. My question at this point is, do you mean immediately after the test when you say following the test?
Not immediately after the test, probably several days, a week or so after that. Not the next day, no.
We haven't seen any documented discussion. Did they take place by telephone?
Potentially, yes. I can't recall, to be honest.
Right. And how well do you recall the fact that it wasn't immediately after the test that, as you say, several people say later?
Because my understanding was that the test was undertaken in May. So this is February, March, April, May. So it was quite a while before. And at that point, they hadn't even decided if they were going to retest, I don't think.
Did you, in fact, have further conversations with Mr. Roper?
Sorry, can you say that again?
I'm so sorry. Did you, in fact, have further conversations with Mr. Roper after the 14th of February test?
I must have done in some way or another, because they then commissioned a second test.
Let's look at BRE 405432, please. This is an email from you to Mr. Roper on the 28th of February 2014, copied to Stephen Howard. And you say, hi, John, with reference to our conversation, it is possible that we could make a wall, our wall 2, available for early to mid-April 2014. And suggested there may be a cost implication, which from memory may be around £2,500, 2.5k. If you think this may be of interest, please let me know and I will confirm costs and timescales. Do you recall that conversation?
I don't recall exactly what was said on the conversation, but I think what happened was initially my understanding was that they were only planning on doing one test, and they then came back saying that they wanted to do a second test, and this is what, sort of 2 weeks later. But we only had a wall which was already blocked up for a part 1 test. And the £2,500 is to have that removed, so they can get on that wall quicker without any delay.
Did Mr. Roper explain to you that Celotex were keen to retest quickly?
I can't remember in those terms, but from the fact that they would have been my assumption, yes.
They were happy, weren't they, in the end, to pay the extra costs to enable that test to happen in April?
They did pay the costs, yes.
Yes. And if we go to CEL 50869, we will see a signed copy of a quotation. And here it is, 14th of March 2014. This is the BRE's quotation to Celotex, Jonathan Roper. And it says, "Dear Jonathan, with reference to your discussion with Phil Clark, we are pleased to offer our services to carry out the work described in this letter, including all costs for labour, materials, and expenses, but excluding VAT, scope of works, conversion of BS 8414 Part 1 test frame to BS 8414 Part 2 configuration, costs £2,500 plus, excluding VAT. We'll begin the work on receipt of your acceptance of this offer." Did you see this document at the time?
Might have even written it myself. I don't know who was it signed by.
Well, if we go to page 2, it's signed by Stephen Howard.
Then probably no.
Now, were you aware that Celotex had accepted the cost implications of the scheduling of its test?
I would have been, because it would have been my role to then work with the contractors to get the system, the wall removed. So I was aware, yes.
And so is it right that one of the cost implications would have been the adaptation of one of the rigs by removing the blockwork to enable an SFS system to be used?
That is correct, yes, yes.
Let's look at BRE 403532, please. It's moving on to the story. This is an email from Mr. Roper on the 24th of March 2014. To Stephen Howard, subject quotation, and there are attachments, and it attaches the signed quotation we've just been looking at. And in fact, what we looked at does actually carry Mr. Roper's signature on page 3. I didn't show you that, but it does. And this was sent to Stephen Howard, but you can see that he says this: "Steve, find attached signed quotation for conversion of one of our rigs to accommodate BS 84142 testing. Could you please ask Phil Clark to give me a call to discuss testing or forward on his direct line?" Do you remember having a conversation with Mr. Roper about this time, as this email asks for?
No, I don't.
You don't? You don't deny that you had a conversation with him?
Oh, I don't deny. I don't remember. If it would be, if he had, it would have been potentially on how long will it take to get the rig out and when can our guys start, potentially. No more than that.
Let's look at Mr. Roper's statement at CEL 3010052 at page 13. And I'd like to look at paragraph 5.31 with you, please. And Mr. Roper says, "Following our internal discussions, I sought some advice from IFC and the BRE. I spoke to Phil about thickening the cladding panel to 12 millimeters. I believe we also spoke about the option of strengthening the fire barrier level with a 2-panel solution, because it appeared from the February test that the cladding panel had cracked and fallen away, which enabled the fire to jump around the fire barrier at level 2. I do not think that Phil suggested anything specific in this regard." Do you agree with Mr. Roper's recollection as he states it there?
No.
You don't agree with it. Do you agree? Let's take it in stages. Well, let me ask you, which part do you not agree with?
That he had the discussion about thickening the panel after the test. And the 2-panel option. I cracked and fallen. Basically all of it.
Right. Now, again, is this that you can't recall, or do you positively deny ever having had such a conversation?
I don't think I ever had such a conversation.
You don't think you did? Can you
To
say?
the best of my recollection, I have never had a conversation. along the lines you suggested there.
Did Mr. Roper mention to you the idea of using a layer of magnesium oxide to you at the level 2 thermocouples?
Not that I'm aware of, no. No.
You're aware of?
No,
Yeah.
no, we haven't had didn't have a conversation along those lines, no.
Are you ruling that out and saying you deny it, or is it that you can't?
Yes, I deny it, yes, yes.
Right. So let me say that we're absolutely clear. It's your evidence to the inquiry, is it, that the evidence in paragraph 531 of Mr. Roper's statement, as we see here, does not accord with your recollection?
Indeed, yes, so that's correct. Yes.
Are you saying that he's lying when he says this?
I would say he was lying, yes. I cannot recall ever having that conversation.
Yes, I just want to be very clear about this because it may be important. There's a difference, as we've established, between having absolutely no recollection of something and positively denying that it happened. Are you simply saying you have no recollection of this conversation in those two respects in particular, or are you positively saying that they never happened, or it never happened?
I would say it never happened. Yeah. It's like, yeah, I would say it never happened.
Now, let's look at your witness statement. And moving on a bit, I want to ask you about delivery notes. At page 70 of your statement, paragraph 289, you say, and I'll show you how the paragraph starts, and then I'll go back to the question you're answering. You say, I recall that most of the materials, in particular the RS 5000, were the same for both tests, as no additional materials were delivered between the two tests. This excludes the rain screen board, for which a new supply was obtained. It is my understanding that there were supply issues with rain screen board. A delivery note from FGF of the, I think that's the 21st of April 2014, details the items supplied. If we can just go back to the question. The question is at question 10R, so that you've got that clear in your mind. If we just scroll up a little bit to that, above paragraph 287, we'll see the question there. In what way, as far as you understood it, did the tested system on 2nd of May 2014 differ from that tested on 14th February 2014? How are any such differences recorded, when and by whom? Now, having shown you what you've said there, you say that there were no additional materials delivered between the two tests, apart from the rain screen cladding board. Let's look at some contemporaneous documents now. At CEL 401982, please. This is an email, second email down, from you to John Roper on the 31st of March 2014. And you say, hi, John, I hope you're well. And you then say, I understand you've tried to contact me regards a start date for the install of your next system. I'm happy to say we are okay at this end, are happy for things to proceed as planned. The wall has been removed and the area will be ready for your arrival. I put you on our wall 1, which has the wing on the left-hand side. Please can you let me know about when you are expecting any deliveries, and I will arrange for the safe storage of the items. I will also need the RAMS, etc., present so they are current for the new install. And if you go over the page, it just finishes by saying, if you need further info about the test wall, please let me know. And he responds in the top email on page 1982, on the 10th of March, and says, I'm well, thank you. I'm in the process of arranging deliveries for the latter part of this week, early next week. The guys from Simco will be arriving Monday morning with the steel frame, etc. I will arrange for a scissor lift to arrive Friday this week. I'll send the RAMS, etc. over today. Now, he refers there, as you can see, to Simcoe bringing the steel frame with them. So that wasn't delivered, but turned up prior to the test with the contractors assembling that rig. Is that right?
I don't recall. If that's what he said, then probably yes. My understanding was that they reused a lot of the stuff from the previous wall.
Right. Let's go to BRE 3032372. This is a manuscript document which appears to be a set of delivery notes in respect of both the February and the May tests. And I wonder if you could help me with this. If we go to page, well, we've got page 1 up on the screen. You recognise this document?
That appears to be handwritten notes by one of my colleagues saying where the thermocouples were spaced out, yes.
And who's that colleague?
I think that's my colleague Tom Lennon's writing.
Lennon.
You have to ask him.
His name before. And if we go to page 2, we can see a delivery note for samples. You see that?
Yes, that's from Siderise, yes.
That's right. That's a sample of 1 pallet, 3 boxes. And you can see the date it was picked up, 4th of April 2014.
Yes.
Now, presumably these were being delivered for the second test, clearly.
It appears that is the case, yes.
Yeah. Page 3, if we go to that. If you can have that expanded. I think this is the delivery note from FGF that you refer to in your statement, isn't it?
It is, yes, and that is my signature.
Those are for the cladding panels, yes?
Yes.
And as you say, you can see the delivery date in the middle of the page under delivered, 14th of April 2014.
That is correct, yes.
And then skipping forward very slightly, can we go to page 6, please? This is a delivery note on Celotex paper, which shows 2 packs, I think 24 sheets, you can see 24 pieces of what looks like FR 5000, in fact.
That's FR 5001.
FR 5100, FR 5100.
Yes.
And if you go down the page, sorry, I should stick on that page for the moment. That's delivered on the 7th of April 2014, isn't it?
Yes, and that appears to be my signature as well.
Yes, and just above description, you can see there are special instructions. You see that?
Yes.
And that says 2 packs, 24 sheets, FR 5100, and 24 sheets, 12.5mm NAF wall board. Please send best quality boards as these are for testing. And again, that's your signature, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And again, clearly from the date, this is for the May test, not for the
yes, I agree, yes.
So do you accept that it isn't right to say that no deliveries were made except for the new cladding panels?
Yes, that is an incorrect statement in my thing. This is the first time I've seen this and the what was the previous one? Sorry. I think the only one I can recall seeing was the FGF one.
That's page 3, which is one you refer to in your statement. Let's see that again.
Yes, I recall that one.
You weren't showing these other delivery notes when you were preparing your statement.
Sorry, say again?
You weren't showing these other delivery notes when you were preparing your statement.
No, I wasn't, no.
It's right to think, isn't it, that the only thing, any object not accounted for between Mr. Roper's email and these delivery notes is the magnesium oxide that was used.
Yes, yes.
Now let's just look
There
at,
is a delivery note for the magnesium oxide board, I thought. It came from, I think it's referenced in my statement.
we're going to look at that.
Yeah, that's fine, okay, correct. Right.
Look at that. CEL 40 is 1985.
Can I just actually, before you move on, what I would say is the FGF and the one I think you're about to show, I did actually request if there were any other delivery notes from BRE, and that's all they issued me. So I don't know where those other delivery notes came from, and they, as you say, they weren't issued to me.
Well, they came from BRE's disclosures, so far as I know. So,
Okay, they didn't come to me.
well, there it is. CEL 40 is 1985. This is a quotation from Euroform products dated the 31st of March 2014. And the delivery address is Celotex in Ipswich and invoice the same. And you can see what is identified there as the quantity and the product underneath that. And you can see there is 15 boards, Versaliner 12 times 1200 millimeters times 2400 millimeters, and then another Versaliner underneath that, and then a third entry, Versa Sealer 252 white. You see that?
I do indeed, yes.
Uh,
This is an invoice, isn't it?
This is a cash invoice. Yes. If I called it a quotation, that's my mistake.
No, that's correct. That's fine.
That's correct. It's an invoice, and it shows, doesn't it, 6 millimeters and 12 millimeters of magnesium oxide, because that is what the Versaliner product is.
It does, yes, that's correct.
Now we can see the delivery address is Celotex. Let's look at CEL 40 is 1981 next, please. Note the date of the document I've just shown you, as I said, was the 31st of March. This is an email from John Roper to Wayne Smith at SIG on the 31st of March.
SIG, the company who supplied the Versaliner, is that correct?
Well, I'm hoping you might be able to help me.
Oh, right, okay. That's SIG, yeah, SIG, Sheffield Insulation, yes.
Good. Wayne, as discussed, can you please arrange and send over an invoice for 15 VersaGuard 12 millimeter boards and 6 VersaGuard 6 millimeter boards for delivery to BRE for Monday, 7th of April. Now, we've seen the cash invoice, which says the delivery address would be Ipswich. But in fact, the request, as we've seen here from this email, was for delivery to the BRE on the 7th of April. Now, both Mr. Roper and Mr. Hayes have told the inquiry that these goods, the VersaGuard 12 millimeter boards and 6 millimeter boards, were delivered and they assume signed for to the BRE. That's Mr. Roper's evidence of day 91. Sorry, I think that should be yes, 91, page 78, at lines 10 to 15, and Mr. Hayes, day 94, page 143 to 144. Turning back to the delivery notes then, can we just look at those? At BRE 30 is 32372 at page 5. This is the only delivery note for magnesium oxide.
I can see the Celotex one still, sir.
Yes, but that's dated January 2014. So that looks like it was for the February test.
Yes, yes.
But we've seen from what I've just shown you, the Euroform invoice, that new material, including 6mm boards, was ordered by Celotex. My first question on this then is, do you accept, looking at the documents we've got so far, is that it isn't the case that the May test was done on a rig comprised solely of materials left over from the February test?
Yes, you're correct. That was my understanding at the time of writing that. That was my recollection, but now I've seen these delivery notes, then you're correct, yes.
Can you explain how the delivery of the 6mm of magnesium oxide material isn't on your file?
Well, I can't actually see the SIG Euroform delivery note.
No, I showed you the invoice.
It's in my witness pack, the evidence that I've issued. It's a green form signed by my colleague Tom Lennon, as far as I'm aware. So the inquiry has it, but interestingly, from my recollection, on the delivery note, it doesn't show the 6 magnesium oxide board. My recollection is there was only 2 items on there, a 12mm and the liner paint, or whatever it is, the ceiling paint. I haven't seen an invoice, a delivery note which shows 6mm magnesium oxide board. So what I'm saying is that the delivery note, I don't think, reflects the invoice that they had.
I'm not sure what document you're referring to, I think is my problem, because we've not seen a green form signed for the 6mm of magnesium oxide in April 2014, signed for by the BRE.
No, there's one with a 12mm, only.
Yes, that's right. Certainly.
Yes.
What I'm after really is the document that shows that the 6mm magnesium oxide was delivered into the BRE in April 2014.
To my knowledge, it never was. I can't recall it being delivered.
Right. So can you explain, therefore, how the delivery of the 6mm magnesium oxide material, which was clearly ordered from Euroform by Mr. Roper, is not documented in your file?
It could have been that the contractor accepted it. It wasn't unusual for a driver to turn up and say, is this so-and-so, I've got a delivery for Celotex, and the installer would take it off. Particularly if it was only 6 boards, that wouldn't necessarily need a fork truck. But I cannot recall it ever being delivered to the hall. And if it had, it should have been on that delivery note that we signed for by my colleague Tom Lennon. I don't know why it's not.
The only version we've got, let's go back to page 5 then of BRE 3032372. We have got a delivery note on a green form. Well, I don't know if that's the green form you're talking about, but that is the only magnesium oxide we have, delivery note for magnesium oxide that we have.
Plasterboard.
That's January.
You may be looking at something different to me, but the one in front of me says 12mm plasterboard.
Sorry, no, you're quite right. Page 4 is what I'm after. You're absolutely right to correct me. I'm looking at page 4, is what we look at. That's January. What we don't have is a delivery note for any 6mm magnesium oxide into the BRE in April, in accordance with Mr. Roper's request that it be delivered there.
Yes.
I'm just trying to understand why that is.
I can't account for that. No, I have no idea.
I think from what you were telling us just before we got distracted back onto the document, was that it was possible for drivers to deliver small amounts of boards into the BRE facility. at the request of a client. Right? Is that right?
That is right. Yes, yes.
Was there no system in place for ensuring that every single piece of material that crossed the BRE's threshold, destined for a test, was documented?
The problem was that we had security guards on the main gate, and because of the proximity of the burn hall, they would basically say it needs to go over there and point towards the hall. So we would get materials turning up, and as you can see, the delivery notes sometimes were signed by other people. So it may have been signed by somebody else, and then the delivery note would have been put with the boards in the hall. So if it wasn't collected by one of us, it may have got lost.
Right. So I think the answer to my question is no, there was no system in place for ensuring that every single piece of material that crossed the BRE's threshold, destined for a test, was documented.
If it went through the goods in system, then it should have been, yes. If it came directly to the burn hall, then I would say no.
So there was, so in other words, the system that you had in place was not good enough to make sure that every single material destined for a test would be accounted for in documentary form.
That is correct, yeah. The security guards would circumvent the system sometimes, and people being people, they would oblige as opposed to annoying the lorry driver, and would offload it, yes.
So does that mean it was possible for a test sponsor to sneak a piece of kit past the BRE and get it onto the rig without the BRE knowing?
Yes, yes. We weren't there all the time. Some of these systems could take a week and a half. I've had one that took almost 3 weeks to complete. We weren't there 24/7. We didn't have a security guard on the door. So yes, you're right, they could have.
So does that mean that when you conducted a test, you weren't always absolutely sure what the precise makeup and composition of the rig you were testing was?
I wouldn't say necessarily, no, but if you've got somebody who's going out of the way to deceive, then there was a possibility they could do that, if that was their intention.
Right, but you issued, and we'll come to these later on, but you issued classification reports and test reports, which stated, without qualification, what the makeup of the test rig was in each case, yes?
Yes, yes.
Did you not have a system of making sure that when you wrote those test data reports and classification reports, you verified, or you were able to verify the precise makeup of the rig by some sort of check system against the materials that had been delivered to the BRE and put up on the rig?
Yeah, that would be in part of the process for taking photographs of the materials that were there. And to my mind, I can't recall them ever saying, oh, by the way, you've got a 6mm magnesium oxide board that you need to be aware of. So.
No, I understand that. But I mean, my question is, they may not have said it, but you clearly didn't have a system of verifying precisely what it was on each occasion that you were testing. Because
I think,
let me explain why. Because it was possible for clients to sneak material past the guards to get it onto the rig without you knowing.
Yes, I think the reliance very much was on the honesty of the client. Yeah, you're correct. Not to do that, yes.
I see.
And ultimately, and as it says, is that the client is reliant, it's to the client to prepare the test rig. We're not there to police necessarily every nth degree of what they're doing there. There's a large element of trust in everything we do.
Can you explain then why it was that Mr. Roper, he was setting out to sneak the 6mm magnesium oxide past the BRE without them noticing, asked Euroform to deliver it to the BRE?
No. I as I say, I can't I wasn't there all the time. I can't recall the delivery, and I think at that point in time there were other people working in the halls, so it could have been signed by anybody from BRE staff. So yes, I can't account for that. No.
Now, I want to turn to your involvement in the May 2014 test. Mr. Chairman, I'm sure this isn't becoming a habit, but it's a long topic that I won't finish before the afternoon break, so this is as good a moment as any.
All right. Well, you put it very persuasively, Mr. Millett. We'll take a break early. What's it now? It's after 3:10. Should we say until 3:30? That's about right, isn't it? Right, Mr. Clark, we'll have our afternoon break early. We'll have it now. We'll come back at 3:30, please.
That's fine, yes.
No talking about your evidence over the break. All right?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, everyone. We can continue taking evidence from Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, you are there, are you? You can see me and hear me.
I'm here, so yes, I can see you and hear you.
Thank you very much, and you're ready to carry on, I hope.
Indeed, I am, yes.
Good, thank you. Yes, Mr. Millett, when you're ready.
Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. Mr. Clark, hello again. I just want to make a correction of a reference in the transcript, if I may, at page 134 of the rolling transcript at line 25. I referred to Mr. Roper's evidence at day 91. It was day 71, and the same for Mr. Hayes. I referred to day 94, whereas in fact it was 74. Of course, day 94 was yesterday. Now, I want to go on, please, to your involvement in the May 2014 test itself. Can I ask you, please, first to go to page 62 of your witness statement and look at paragraph 256. Now, this is in answer to the question at Q10A, who had overall sight of this test? And your evidence is, it is my recollection that I had oversight of this particular test, and that at the time I was working under the overall direction of Stephen Howard of BRE. Were you the project officer or the officer in charge of the May 2014 test?
Both.
Both. And as such, it's right, isn't it, I think, from your earlier evidence, that you would have been responsible for ensuring that the standard operating procedures were followed?
Yes, that's correct.
Can we look at the pro forma standard operating procedure document? This is at BRE 405773 at page 3. Now, it's page 3. The document you can see is entitled Cladding Test Data File and Report Preparations Sheet. I think this dates from May 2013, doesn't it?
I think that's correct, yes.
Yeah, we can see that from page 2 of the email chain. Immediately above it, I mean, we can see that from the bottom of the previous page. There's an email from you to Tony Baker, 15th of May 2013.
Yes.
Yes? Yes.
Yes.
Now, the checklist, if we go to page 3, includes, you see, receiving client specifications. That's the second item down, isn't it?
Yes.
And also, if you look a little bit lower down the list there, 4 items down, undertaken component check and obtained samples. Yes?
Yes.
Yes. Is there any reason to think that this checklist would not have been completed for the May 2014 test?
In reality, I don't think we signed in every single sheet. It was initially it was put forward as a protocol to follow, but we didn't necessarily sign and date every sheet as we went. It was a document to follow.
You see, we can't find a completed test data file and report preparation sheet such as this in your disclosure for the May 2014 test. Am I right that there actually wasn't one?
Yeah, you are, yes.
Right. Would that be normal or would that be abnormal?
That would be normal.
What was the point of having a detailed standard operating procedure document such as this, introduced only a year before, which you didn't use?
It was proposed at the time that we were trying to sort of improve the way things were done, and I was looking to try and do things a little bit more electronically. And I pulled together these sheets, I think, if I recall correctly, in order to aid that. And they were essentially more of an aid memoir than a sheet that we would follow.
Right. Did you use this as an aid memoir on this occasion? A test?
Not by directly printing it out, no. Said no.
Right. Did you undertake a component check?
On that test, I think I possibly did, yes.
How did you go about that?
It's one of the things that's been playing on my mind in terms of there are photographic evidence of all of the component parts. One of the things that's worried me as to I can't recall seeing the insulation and the final decorative rain screen go on, and I think that probably happened while I was on my first aid course. So that would have and should have been done by whoever was deputising for me when I was out of the office.
Who was that?
I can't recall, but I think it would have been Stephen Howard.
Now, we know from Celotex that no updated drawings were prepared in advance of the May test. So what specifications were you working from when building the rig?
I wasn't building the rig. When Simco were building the rig.
Right. What specifications were being worked on then?
My understanding was they were using the same drawings that were issued for the February 14 test.
But it can't have been the same because, as you knew, a different system was being tested, no?
Yes, I think there's an email that comes further on, which you may ask, which they reissued the new drawings after the test.
We're going to come to that. My question is, did you see any updated or revised drawings ahead of the May test?
No, I don't think.
Did it not strike you as strange that you hadn't?
No, because to all intents and purposes, they were repeating the same test.
Why would they be repeating the same test if the first one?
Sorry, not repeating the same test. The only difference was the changed outer sheet.
Did you see any drawings which reflected that revision?
I can't recall I did, no.
No.
They would have been, and they should have been issued to Simco. So Simco, it was usual that the contractor would turn up with their own drawings to construct the rig. And the person who constructed the first rig was the same person who constructed the second rig.
Mr. Clark, looking at the SOP, the standard operating procedure, the second item I showed you on the list was receive client system specifications.
Yes.
Would it therefore be surprising to you, even though that document wasn't followed to the letter, would it not have been surprising to you not to have received the client system specifications for the May test, given that it was different from the February test?
Not always. I think I've said in one of my other paragraphs that it wasn't unusual for the client to issue drawings after the test had taken place. So it wasn't unusual, no. Right.
Did you ever see any revised drawings which applied to the May test after the May test?
Not directly after. I think there's an email from Paul Evans which attaches some updated drawings.
We'll come to those.
Yes.
At any rate, you accepted that you didn't see any updated or revised drawings for the May test before the May test.
I may have done. I am aware there are about 4 versions or 5 versions of the test drawings. So there may have been a package in there, but I haven't seen them in preparation from this statement. So I can't confirm.
Well, we know for a fact that no updated drawings were prepared in advance of the May test. That is clear from the evidence we've seen so far. So would you take it from me that you couldn't have seen any updated, revised test drawing?
Yeah, I think that was my understanding, yes.
Yeah. And my question is, did that not strike you as surprising that you had not been provided before the test with revised drawings?
No, because we were already in, we already had a set of drawings from the previous test.
Mr. Clark, we're going around in circles. That doesn't make any sense because the previous test wasn't going to be the same system as tested. The new system was different. Now, given that the new system was different, given that your SOP required that you received client system specifications, did it not strike you as surprising that you never received any updated drawings from your client before the test?
No.
And why is that?
Because to my understanding was it was an exact repeat, except for the change of one item, which was the external rain screen board, and everything else was exactly the same.
Why would that excuse not providing an updated drawing, even if just to show that change detail, so that you had a record?
Because in reality, the drawings were issued to the contractor putting the system together. And it just wasn't unusual for us not to get the final drawings ahead of the test. It wasn't unusual. So,
Mr. Millett, forgive me for interrupting. Mr. Clark, just help me with this. Wasn't it essential for the BRE to know exactly the composition of the system being tested?
Yes, we did, sir. Other than there was, my understanding was there was only one change to be made.
Well, that's what you expected, but what you needed, am I not right in thinking that one thing that you needed to know was the actual composition of the system that was put into the test?
We did, yes, but we didn't need that on the day of the test.
Right, so my next question is, how did you determine definitively that the rain screen cladding on this test was what you had been led to believe it would be?
I understand your question, and the answer is from checking the delivery notes and checking and measuring on site. So yeah, I understand where you're coming from, but it wasn't common practice to insist to have them at the beginning. Maybe it should have been, but it wasn't.
So when did you obtain this information on a definitive basis?
I think they were issued just before the second draft of the test report. I think there's an email which pertains to that.
Right, based on what, an examination of the test rig after the fire?
No, they're issued by the client. So they came from Celotex via Simco, or Simco via Celotex, sorry.
You're now talking about the drawings, are you?
Drawings, yes, so that's correct.
All right. Yes, all right. Thank you, Mr. Millett.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. That's drawings. We're going to come back to the drawings, and we will certainly look at those July emails later. Photographs. Were photographs of each component layer taken as this list requires? And I say this list, it's gone from the screen, the report preparation sheet. Were photographs taken of each component layer?
As far as I was aware, yes, they were, yes.
So as far as you were aware, have you seen them?
I've seen a package of photographs that show them, yes. I think they're in my witness statement, as far as I'm aware.
Those are the photographs you are referring to?
Yes, yes.
Those. And what about samples? You see the list says undertake component check and obtain samples. Did the BRE receive any samples ahead of the May test?
So that I think that list refers to. Does it refer to LPS as well? 1582 on there. So if it does, that is a requirement for that certification. That there's no requirement for 8414 to take samples. So the answer is no, we didn't take samples.
Right. Can we go to page 65 of your statement, please, at paragraph 267? You say in 267, and this is in answer to the following question at 10H, what if any checks were carried out by the BRE during the installation of the test rig or thereafter, but prior to the start of the test, who was responsible for carrying out any such checks? And your answer is the test file indicates that the checks carried out by the BRE involved identifying and photographing the components and the structure as it was installed. Having reviewed the test file, it would appear that photographs were only taken prior to the external decorative arrangement being applied. I do not know the reason for this. I believe I may have been away, possibly on a first aid course during the strip down in particular. Now, we looked at that evidence this morning when you were correcting it about the timing of the first aid course. When you say that you checked the test file, having reviewed the test file, were you provided with access to the full file, Mr. Clark?
I was given access to the printed copy as much as possible, yes. The paper copy, which I think had been scanned in by BRE.
Right. If you go to the next paragraph in your statement, 268, and I'll come back to 267 in a moment, you say, in terms of how these checks were carried out, it would be usual for me to ask the test sponsor or contractor to identify all of the component parts and to describe where in the system they were used. Once all of the components were identified, I would photograph them either individually or with the box in which they were supplied, if details of the item were printed on the box, for example. If it was not possible to get a scale for the item, it was usual for the item to be photographed with a ruler to enable the size of the item to be confirmed. Wherever possible, the item would also be photographed once it had been installed onto the system. There was a standard set of operating procedures which detailed the items to be recorded. Then you say pages 424 to 431 are an example of this process. Additional photographs of the components would also be printed off and put onto the project file. Is the project file the same as the test file?
Yes, it is.
Can you just help me? If you had had access, as you say, to the full test file when preparing your statement, why do you why in this paragraph do you describe what would normally occur instead of simply providing the evidence of what checks were actually carried out as the test file shows?
Was the question what tests? Maybe I've misinterpreted the question. Maybe I, as you say, maybe should have answered it directly. Yeah, sorry, Karen.
Well, did you understand my question, Mr. Clark?
I did, yes. Yes, I think I've been too general there. Yes, you're right. I should have answered what was checked. What was checked.
Well, so what we've got here is not a description of what was in the test file, but what you say the normal practice would have shown had the normal practice been followed.
I've probably been too general there, yes.
Why? Why didn't you just explain what checks the test file showed in answer to the question?
Can you show me the answer again? Sorry.
Well, I've just read it out at length. Pay the whole of paragraph 268.
No, that's fine. No, I think maybe you're right. I was being too generalised there. Maybe I've misanswered the question.
Yes, but why? It's a simple question. What checks were carried out during the installation of the test rig? You had the test file in front of you, as you said. You chose to answer it in this would have way. Why?
I can't explain why. No, it's just at the time of writing, it seemed the right way to answer it.
Well, from the test file, can you say that each of the things you say you would have expected to find in paragraph 268, you did find in the test file?
Yes, as far as I'm aware, yes. Yeah. Apart from the fact I couldn't explain why there was no photographs of the external screen going up. That's the only thing I can't explain. But everything else is there as far as I'm aware.
You see, you say in the third line of 268, once all of the components were identified, I would photograph them either individually or with the box. And then where possible, the item would also be photographed once it had been installed on the system. Now, the test file that you reviewed presumably did not show the photographs or have on it the photographs of each of the components on the rig.
I think it does.
You think it does?
I think it does, yes.
Does it follow that there are photographs in the test file that show the presence of the 6mm magnesium oxide layer at the top? second thermocouple?
This is the thing that's been racking my brain, and that's why I mentioned it in there, is because I can't account for that. And having and the evidence you read in this morning, with the fact that I was actually out of the office for 2 of the days when the construction was going ahead, it appears to me that those photographs weren't taken by whomever was deputising for me, and that's why they're not there.
Are you speculating about this, or is this something you've actually investigated and got to the bottom of?
In terms of who should have taken them and didn't, you mean?
In terms of why there are no photographs on the test file of the magnesium oxide layer? Layers, there are 2 of them.
There are not of the magnesium oxide layer, but there are of the overall test rig, I think. So they would have been taken the day of the test, once it had been fully instrumented. So there are, but no, I can't, I'm not, I'm speculating that that's probably what happened. I can't account for it because I don't think I was in the office when that layer was put up.
Now, going back to paragraph 267, you say in the second sentence, we can just go back to that, please. You say in the second sentence, having reviewed the test file, it would appear that photographs were only taken prior to the external decorative arrangement being applied. I do not know the reason for this. I believe I may have been away. Well, you may have been away, Mr. Clark, but did you not investigate the reason for this?
You mean before, as I wrote this?
Well, let's take it in stages. When did you first become aware that the photographs on the file were only taken before the external decorative arrangement had been applied?
When I was issued the test file as part of the submission.
As part of the submission for you to do your witness statement?
Yes, that's correct.
You noticed it then?
I did.
Did you not at that stage ask anybody at the BRE or your solicitors to investigate the reason why the photographs on the file were only those taken before the external decorative arrangement had been applied?
No, I didn't, and I don't think that would be a question they would ever be able to answer.
Right.
I suppose the question could have been to BRE, could you search the system and see if there are any? But to be honest, I don't know whether they would have been able to identify them particularly easily.
Did you not look at the test file after the test?
Yes, I would have done, yes.
When was the first time that you looked at the test file after the test?
It would have been when I did the first draft of the test report, I think.
So late June.
Yes.
Did you not notice at that stage that the photographs in the test file were only those taken before the external decorative arrangement had been applied?
I don't specifically recall that, but the thing is, they're not relevant necessarily for the final report, because we always take the outer layer. So my concern was that there was nothing showing it going up in stages. What you need to remember is that what we would say to the client is we would ask them to put each individual layer in, and then they would call us when that component was finished. So say, for example, if they put in the metal frame up, we'd take a picture of that. When they put the board at the back, we would put that on. And then when they put the insulation on, we'd take a picture of that. So I would have expected whoever was deputising for me while I was out to take some photographs of the outer screen going on. But the fact that we had taken them on the day of the test sort of gave us the information we need, but we should have had a few more, I think.
But I think from the last answer you've given us is that you would expect there to be, is this right? You'd expect there to be on the test file photographs showing the application of each of the component elements layer by layer of the test rig.
There should be, yes, yes.
And when you first reviewed the test file in late June 2014, after the test, sorry, late May after the test, did you not notice that such photographs were missing from the test file?
It doesn't come to mind that I did, no.
How carefully did you review the test file at that stage?
Well enough to draft the report, but
Right.
yes.
Not well enough to notice that the photographs that you would normally expect to be there were not there.
I did, but I can't recall what the action was. I may have pointed out, but I can't recall.
Right. Let's look at the photographs. Well, let's look at what I'm going to ask you with the photographs. BRE 3030675, please. Now, are these the photographs that you're referring to in your statement?
That appears to be, yes. That is a set of photographs, yes. So that one there particularly would have been taken possibly on the day before the test. So that would have been an indication as to where the thermocouples were put, yes.
Well, you say that. If we look down, we can see, in fact, there are, if you go to page 4, there are some photographs. But the thermocouples, level 2 thermocouples and the top of the rig were as yet uncovered, weren't they?
They go in after the system is completed.
Yes, and the magnesium oxide that we know is later there was not yet on the rig at that stage.
No, so that's what we would call the sheathing board layer going in there.
So, yes. Now, in your statement at page 69, I'm going to take this quite quickly. I just want to show you paragraphs 284 and 285 on page 69. Again, in answering the question, what information or documents were made available to you, and Tony Baker, in 284, you say what would have been on the test file, as opposed to saying what was on the test file or what was available to you. Yes?
Yes, yes. That's my
again,
wording, I think, sorry.
Well, you say each test or project would have a test file, each project would have an accompanying electronic project file, etc., which, and you explain what would be on that file. And that included safety data sheets and risk assessment, etc., etc. Files would have included items as shown in, and you give examples. And then paragraph 285, you say that would have been available to Mr. Baker. Again, you haven't answered the question, what was available to you. You've answered the question, what would have been available to you. And again, why did you do that?
I think that's the difference between was and would. That's just the way I wrote it. It should have been, if I rewrote it again, I would have probably said that, as you say, the project file was available.
Well, just help me with this. Did you understand the question? What information were made, or documents were made available to you? That's asking you what you had. Yes?
Yes, yes.
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 Why did you answer it what you would have had, as opposed actually to investigating what you in fact did have?
I think probably at the time I was being too general again. It's just the way I wrote the sentences. Yeah, maybe I slightly misinterpreted how I should have written the question.
How could you misinterpret? Again, it's the same point. How could you misinterpret a very simple question? What was available to you?
Well, I think that sentence makes it clear. That's what was available. Should have said was as opposed to would have been.
Well, are you saying this is just misdrafting? Or are you actually saying that this is actually evidence of what you would have expected to find, but not evidence of what you actually did find in an investigation that you undertook in order to answer the question?
No, that's what I did find, as far as I'm aware. That's why the references to the pages, I think, are there.
None of those items that you refer to actually relate to the May test, do they?
Sorry, say again.
None of the items you refer to at pages 581, 582, 583 to 596 and page 250 to 261 actually relate to the May 2014 test at all.
Do they not? I'd be surprised if they don't.
Right. Well, let's have a look. Can we go to, I'm wrong, I think, in relation to 581 and 582, but the rest of the documents don't. Let me see if I can put this to you. Can we go to BRE 405769, page 583? So the first two do, 581 and 582 do relate to the May test, but 583 to 596, let's have a look at that. This is is this the document you were referring to there?
That is a site safety induction form.
Yes.
Yes.
And it's dated the 28th. If you look, it's dated the 28th of January 2014, isn't it?
Yes.
And do you agree with me that this is the contractor / client management sheet, health and safety method statement, powered access license and health and safety product data sheet for Marley Eternit panels and Celotex insulation for the February test?
It appears to be, yes, but we wouldn't necessarily always re-induct somebody if they'd already been in the hall.
We don't have the same for the May test, do we?
I'm not certain, no. But as I say, it was common practice. So if a contractor hadn't only just come to site, they would have this induction. If they then came back to site, they wouldn't necessarily have to have a new re-induction if it was a short period of time. And the difference between January and May was long enough not to require them to have it.
Let's look at BRE 405769, pages 250 to 250 to I'm so sorry, 250 to 261. And you refer to these as well. Now, these are photographs, again, just take a moment to look at them. They are all photographs for the February test, aren't they?
Yes, looking at where the wing wall is, they appear to be, yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Not the May test.
They appear not to be. If the wing wall is on your right-hand side, then they appear to be the incorrect one, yes.
And what about the photographs of the May test? We've got those and we'll come to them, but you didn't refer to those when you were answering the question, what information was available to you? My question is, did you not look at those photographs when answering this question at this part of your statement?
I thought I had, yes.
Well, you haven't. We can go back to paragraph 284 and 285 of your statement on page 69.
I think these page numbers were put in by BRE's first set of lawyers. So I don't know, but I did check, but maybe I just hadn't noticed they didn't refer to the right test.
Right. Okay. Would it not have been simpler just to take the May test file, whatever it was, and just state the contents of it?
It would have been, yes, I agree, yes.
Now,
It's my interpretation of how I answered the question. Obviously, I've been a bit too vague there. I admit that, yes.
Now, I want to look with you about your awareness of magnesium oxide. Now, in general, was it correct, as Ivor Meredith told the inquiry, and he was from Kingspan, this is day 75, page 50 at lines 8 to 14, was it correct that the BRE would normally go through the build-up with a fine tooth comb and make sure that it was the same as the plans?
Depends how you define a fine tooth comb. I wouldn't say we would measure every single gap or every single not every single nth degree. No, we would get a general overview of what was being built. But a fine tooth comb is probably a bit too over the top, I would say.
Well, it's a question of degree. Mr. Meredith's evidence was that you had control of the burn hall and that there were people reporting to you, running around with clipboards, checking this kind of thing, is how he put it. Would you agree?
No, not particularly, no. I wasn't in charge of anybody. I had no staff.
Well, whoever was in charge of whom, would you agree that the staff in charge of the burn hall supervising a test would go through the build-up with a degree of precision to make sure that they knew exactly what it was that was being tested?
Yeah, there's a degree of truth in there, but I wouldn't say a fine-tooth comb is the right word to use.
All right.
Yes.
Can you explain how you, as you say, missed the presence of a layer of magnesium oxide at the second level thermocouples and at the top of the rig?
No, I can't. And this is what has been playing in my mind for a long time. So in terms of the way things were done, is we would, to a certain extent, we relied on the client delivering what they had said they were going to deliver. One of the things, when it was brought to my attention that it was there, it was, how did it get there? And this is why I then reviewed to sort of see where what my movements were as that layer was going on. So I would have returned to the burn hall the day before the test, and would be running around instrumenting and all that sort of stuff. And to this day, I still can't think why I missed it. No, I can't account for that at all. And it's.
But of course, one possibility, Mr. Clark, is that you didn't miss it, and that what Mr. Hayes and Mr. Roper have told the inquiry on oath is correct, and that you knew it was there.
No, I didn't know it was there. No.
Putting it to you that you did.
I refute that. No, definitely not.
Let's look at the photographs. BRE 30681. This is a collection of photos, and we'll see that they're labelled at the bottom of the page with a manuscript number PN 295369. Now that's the report number, isn't it, for the May 2014 test?
Yes, but that isn't my writing.
I didn't ask you that.
Well, I think it's relevant, but come on.
Well, then, okay, why is it? Well, tell us whose it was.
I don't recall who that is. I don't recognise it.
Why do you say it's relevant?
Because when, if I printed these sheets off, I would put the label on like that. I would then put put the page numbers, and then I would sign it with put my signature on it.
Can you confirm that these are indeed photographs of the May 2014 test?
Yes, I would say they are. Looking at the colouring.
You say looking at the colouring. To be clear, is that because we can see the distinctive mixed cladding colours?
Indeed, yes, that's correct. Yes.
Yes. Do you know who took these photographs?
I don't, because other people did have access to the AV equipment and all the iPad that we were using.
Now, do you know where these were filed or kept?
They should have been on the test file, but I've not seen these. I can't recall
Well, they should have been on the test file. I think we could certainly agree with that.
No, I mean electronically, sorry, on the BRE electronic system.
Right, but you say they weren't.
I haven't seen them since I've been requested to give evidence, no.
Did you see them when you wrote the first draft of your report in the summer?
No, today is the first time I've seen them.
Can you explain where they were filed or where they were kept, or at least why they weren't on the test file?
No. One of the things you need to be aware of is that post the fire at the tower, all of the systems at both paper and electronic were locked down at BRE, so I had no access to any files on any of the systems. So anything I was given, I was reliant on BRE to provide me.
I think we understand from the BRE that these photographs formed part of the test file, but given what you said in your statement at paragraph 267, namely that the only photographs you saw were those taken prior to the external cladding being applied, do we take it that these were not on the version of the test file you saw?
I think that's correct, yes.
So just to be clear, today is the first time you've ever seen these photographs?
Yes.
Really? Can I ask you to look at the top right-hand picture? That's a close-up of an edge. We might be able to blow it up a little bit better without destroying visibility of the image.
Did you say top right, sorry?
Top right, yes. That's, I think, as well as we're going to do. You could see a white board behind the orange cladding panel, can't you?
No, not from where I'm looking, no. Unless we're looking at different pictures. I'm looking at page 1, top right-hand corner, just where the blue line is coming down.
Yes, yes. But let me try a different one. Let me try the left-hand side then. If you look at the top left-hand photograph.
Oh, I can there, yes, definitely.
Yes, you can see there clearly a whiteboard behind the orange cladding panel, which is not present behind the cladding panel below it. Yes?
Yes.
Now we know from Mr. Roper that that was the 6mm magnesium oxide layer. And he said that at day 71 at page 139, lines 6 to 14.
Yes.
Can you explain how you failed to notice that there was that layer, apparently undisclosed, behind the orange panel?
For context, that is something in the order of 6 meters off the ground, 7 meters off the ground. That is taken, I would look to see, has been taken from the access platform from the scissor lift, that was used to access. So I would say that's been taken from at height in close proximity. And if I didn't have a reason to go up there, I wouldn't have gone up there. And I don't think I would have had a reason to go there because the test was being instrumented by other people.
It would have taken a little time, wouldn't it, for the magnesium oxide layer to be applied in 2 layers across this rig. First layer at the level 2 thermocouple and the second layer at the top of the rig. It would have taken a little time to do that, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would have done, yes.
And you're saying you just didn't see that being applied?
No, I wasn't in the office when it was being done.
Somebody at the BRE must have seen it being applied, though, mustn't they?
I think they would have done, yes. Somebody should have done, but nobody pointed it out to me.
Well, when you were, well, let me explore that a little bit. You say you weren't in the office. Who was reporting to you on the build-up of this rig at that time?
I think, I can't recall who had deputised. It was usual that if I was going out of the building, I would inform, obviously, my line manager because they signed off my health and safety course. At the time, we had an apprentice, but he was I think he was there for too short a time where I was happy for him to be left by himself. And I can't recall who was deputising. I would have more than likely asked Steve Howard to cover while I was out.
How long were you out of the office for?
2 days.
2 days. 2 days is a long enough time to ensure that you had a senior and responsible person who would report to you in place. Not
Yes.
by nipping out for lunch.
Oh, yes, yeah, without a doubt, yes.
So it would have required some organisation on your part, wouldn't it?
It would have done, yes.
Can you not recall who it was that you organised to take your place?
No, to be honest, I can't. It could have been Stephen Howard. My colleague Tom Lennon occasionally would deputise if I was there, if I wasn't in. And I think by 2014, it might have been, we were just getting a new burn hall manager at that point. So if he was in place, he may have been covering then. I can't remember his start date. But the honest truth is I can't remember who was deputised before me. And I haven't seen anything that indicates who was.
Right. Whoever was deputising for you, and you say you can't recall, can you think of any reason why they wouldn't have noticed these layers of magnesium oxide going up onto the rig?
So as I said earlier, it was what we would ask the client to do would be to let us know when they get to key points. So if, say, for example, they were putting the layer over the whole system, we wouldn't necessarily always take a picture when they were halfway through. It might be we say, right, we've got the bit we want at the back, we've got all the cavity barriers in place. Can you let us know when you finished putting the outer facade on? And then somebody would go off and do something else, and they'll come back and say, we've finished the facade, you can take the photos now. So it wasn't always somebody there through the whole of the process. We weren't stood there watching every single board that goes on.
No, well, I can just about understand that. But given that there was nobody there watching every single board that went on, was that not all the more reason to have a reliable system of checks to make sure that you did know what test sponsors had put on the rig?
Yes, to a certain degree, I agree. Yes.
Yes, it's just an example, isn't it? That for
I missed the first bit of your question.
Looking at the right-hand side of the photographs, you can see that the bottom edge of the orange panel protrudes very slightly over the top edge of the grey panel beneath it. Actually, the middle panel, the middle photograph is a better example of that. Can you see that there's an overhang?
It's not clear from those photographs. I can't see.
Did you notice a protrusion or overlap at the time of the test?
No. I just noticed how.
We'll show you a better photograph. Go to the second layer down, the middle photograph there. And that shows a pretty pronounced overhang, doesn't it? The orange layer overhangs the grey layer immediately below it by, in fact, 2 millimeters. You can see that, can't you?
You can from that. You can see there's a darker line, but that's 8.5 meters in the air. You can't see that from that.
Well, did you not inspect, or did you inspect the rig as completed before the test?
Not from high level, no, I don't think I possibly did.
You didn't notice that there was a 2 millimeter overhang?
No.
You didn't notice that the facade was not entirely flush?
No, as I say, I think that first board is to the base from the floor is 7 meters. The top is almost 8.5 meters. You need access equipment to get to that. and you can't see from the edge without leaning over the barrier. So no, it's all away from where you would normally see in walking up the stairs, etc. So it would easily be missed.
Let's look at some more photographs. BRE 30674, please. This is the longer set of photographs that we have. Do you know why the two-page set of photographs with the signature that you don't recognize, it has become separated and there's a separate document from this longer set?
Because I think these ones are GoPro, are they of the test? So I think they're taken every sort of 30 seconds maybe throughout the test. And again, that isn't my writing. So I don't know who prepared these.
When you say that isn't your writing, you mean the reference at the bottom?
The writing, and that's not my.
Did you?
Sorry, Karen.
Did you want to say something?
And again, if it was, I would sign them with my name.
Right. Did you review these images, whether they're photographs or stills from a GoPro, at the time you first reviewed the test file?
I don't think I did, because they're not relevant for writing the test report.
Did you, looking at the previous photographs or this photographs, did you notice that there was an orange layer?
I did, yes. Yes, it's obvious, it's there.
It is. Did you not wonder what it was?
My understanding was it was. Yeah, I did. I think I mentioned it didn't look very nice.
Well, doesn't it?
But
the BRE isn't concerned with having to look. Who did you mention it to?
I think to Jonathan Roper. I think there's a comment in post-test of how untidy it looked, and he commented it himself.
Did you ask him why they put a strip of orange, or actually ruby, a Marley Eternit at those two places in particular on the rig?
No, I didn't, no.
I mean, it was odd enough for you to notice that it looked ugly. Why didn't you ask him what its technical function was?
Because my understanding at the time, I don't know if I've got this from something else, but my understanding is that there was he had struggled to get hold of material in short notice. I think that was Celotex. I think around the time there was a shortage of some description. I just assumed that was all he could get in the short notice he had.
Now, you say in your statement, and we'll come back to the orange layer in a moment, perhaps tomorrow, but we may get to it. If you go back to paragraph, I think we've probably covered that. Let's look at the question of the ruby colour. Can we go to paragraph 252 of your statement? At page 61. You say there, from my review, page 252, from my review of photographs relating to this test, including at figure 3 of the test report, it appears possible that the 8mm ruby board was used on the external wall of the test system, the orange board near the top of figure 3. If so, and I have no way of knowing for certain, this was not recorded in the test report. And if we go to page 66 of your witness statement, to paragraph 269, you say there, in answer, and I'll show you the question you're answering, did you have any discussions with any individual working on installation of the test rig for Simco or for Celotex as to the test, any of the components of the test rig or any other related matter? Are you aware of Tony Baker or any other representative of BRE having any such discussion? If so, please set out your recollections in respect of any such discussions. And you say, I had a conversation with Mr. Roper, Celotex, about the colour of the facade, but I do not have a clear memory of it. And you say, if my recollection is correct, I pointed out that there might be potential differences in the fire spread over the surface of different coloured material. However, Mr. Roper assured me that Celotex was aware of this and had taken this into account when specifying the material to be used. I think the explanation was that there was a shortage of the particular rain screen material available at the time, and this was the only material that they could source within the time available. I cannot recall any other conversations with respect to the test rig taking place. Now, notwithstanding that discussion that you recall, you didn't actually record the difference in material on the facade element of the test rig anywhere in the reports, did you?
In terms of the colours, do you mean?
Well, in terms of the materials, in terms of the colours and what they were, the product.
No, because the assumption was that they were the same thickness throughout, and there would be no need to differentiate them in that regard. Well,
you see, you say in your statement that you had had a concern that there might be potential differences in the fire spread over the surface of different colour material. Mr. Roper assured me, you say, that Celotex had taken that into account when specifying the material. Why didn't you identify that assurance, at the very least, in your report?
Because it's not something that is written into a BS 8414 report. It's a statement of fact. It's not. I had a conversation with Mr. X about this issue. That's not what the report is for.
Now, what allowed you to rely on Mr. Roper's assurance that there were no potential differences or negligible potential differences in fire spread?
We're reliant on what the client's information they provide.
Not for fire performance. After all, was that not the purpose of having this test in the first place?
Yes, but if there was, then that would have been. It was really to point out that had it been such that the performance of the two boards was so different that it could potentially, had they not taken into account, drive the system to failure. That was the reason for it, not that there was any other reasoning behind it.
Now, we've seen that the delivery note for the cladding boards showed on its face, and we can go back to them if we need to, that the Ruby boards, I think Ruby Eternit, were 8mm. Do you remember seeing that, or do we need to go back to it?
I remember seeing it, but I don't recall seeing it until it was made clear to me that there was a difference.
Well, why did you not check to make sure that the Ruby boards were the same thickness as the rest of the facade boards?
I'm not certain why. I can't answer that question. It was an error on my part.
Right.
I think if I recall, the text on the delivery note isn't wholly clear. If you didn't read it, having it straight in front of you, it's quite difficult to read anyway.
So that wasn't noted on the test file either, is that right?
Yes, that's correct, yes. Although the delivery note, I think, was in the test file, as far as I'm aware.
Wouldn't the thickness of the layer of, I call it rain screen, the surface material at that point in the rig have made a difference, potentially, to the way in which the test would have performed?
Yes, potentially, yes. Had it been that the system had performed in a way where it had impacted on that layer, then yes, I agree, yeah, definitely.
So why didn't you simply write in the test reports and the classification report, which we'll come to, that the rain screen element of this system comprised two parts, one which was white, and one which had a thinner layer, 8mm layer of ruby eternit in two places?
Because I wasn't aware there was a difference.
Well, you may not have been aware there was a difference in effect, but you must have known there was a difference.
No, sorry. I mean, I wasn't aware that there were two thicknesses of material on the rig. That's why it wasn't mentioned.
So you missed the thickness, you didn't refer to the colour because you relied on an assurance from the client that it would have made no difference with fire spread, and you didn't note it in your report.
Yeah, that is correct, yes.
And you didn't notice the overhang, and you didn't notice the layer of magnesium oxide behind it at any stage?
No.
Your deputy didn't report that to you?
No.
Yet somebody in the BRE took photographs identifying the presence of magnesium oxide?
They took photographs, but if it was taken by the apprentice, he may not have known the significance of it.
Right.
Necessarily. So not to deflect any blame on anybody else, but if he had taken that, not knowing what he was looking at, he was just taking some photographs. And if he'd have not turned around and said, oh, by the way, I've noticed this, and didn't draw it to my attention, then it would have got missed. It did get missed.
This is quite an incredible list of omissions and missed instances, isn't it?
Yes, I probably agree with you. Yes.
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 I mean, Mr. Clark, isn't the reality that you knew very well that there was a 6mm magnesium oxide layer behind it? You were in charge of this test. The photographs showed it was there. The deputy knew it was there, as they must have been. It would have taken time to put up. And it was covered over by a perfectly obvious ruby-coloured band in two places of a material of a different thickness. Surely you must have realised what was behind it.
No, I would have reported it. And had I known it, I would have stopped the test. I can't see it served no purpose. So the thing is, if they were trying to hide it, and I was aware of it, well, then why would you put something on the front of the front of another board which had the potential to fall off during the test and expose what was behind it? That just doesn't make sense. Well, I know I'm not the world's cleverest man, but I'm not stupid enough to put two different coloured materials on, knowing the dynamics of how the boards can fail, and it would fall off. And then you go, well, why is now a white board there where there was an orange board earlier? Just doesn't make sense.
Mr. Chairman, is that a convenient moment? I'm so sorry, Mr. Clark.
That's fine.
Something at the end.
Yeah, no, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Mr. Chairman, is that a convenient moment?
Is it convenient to you, Mr. Millett? Yeah, very good. Well, I think we'll stop there for the day, Mr. Clark.
Okay, that's fine.
And we'll resume, please, at 10 o'clock tomorrow.
Okay.
And again, I must ask you not to talk to anyone at all about your evidence or anything relating to it over the break.
I understand, yes.
Thank you very much. We'll look forward to seeing you tomorrow at 10 o'clock then, please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.